Game of Thrones, love it or hate it. After 8 epic years of chivalry, sex, death, and dragons, fans of Game of Thrones mourn the end of its final season on May 20th. Airing in 170 countries, the show is the most expensive ever with a budget of 15 million US dollars or about 20.7 million Sing dollars per episode in its final run. In the United States, about 43 million viewers on average tune in for the final season. I have John Lui, Straits Times film correspondent, in the studio with me today to share his insights on how the series transformed the world of television. John Lui, thank you for being in the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So John, can you talk about what was the reactions on the final episode that aired on May 20th?
Wow, the reactions were really mixed. You know, some people loved it, they were invested, and they liked how all the threads wrapped up, but other people really hated it. Yeah.
And I know that there's now an online petition, right, where about more than 1 million people have signed to make sure that, to ask for the season to, be done again, to be filmed again.
A do-over. Well, we'll see if it happens, but it's a gesture of, I guess, it's an expression of their rage and anger.
So we have a lot of fans out there.
Yeah.
So in your piece, you said that Game of Thrones changed the world of television. How has that changed not only the consumption but also the production of television series?
Well, first, it's made a genre that was pretty unfashionable for a while, made it popular again, and that's fantasy. In this case, it's medieval fantasy. So, now you see shows like Vikings and Westworld, right, trying to capture that excitement again of that kind of fantasy, science fiction kind of a genre. Even in Korea, you have something like Kingdom, which is also a kind of a medieval fantasy with zombies, yeah. So, yeah, it's made that really popular.
Okay, and how about Netflix? Did Netflix jump on that fantasy too?
Yes, they made something called Marco Polo, that was filmed just right across the border in JB, yeah.
Okay. And also you said that Game of Thrones paved the way for R21 scenes to be shown in Singapore on online streaming services. Is this like a decision by MDA to make Singapore relevant and also like keep up its reputation as a global city?
Well, it's just my speculation, but it is Game of Thrones was such a global phenomenon. Netflix is also a global phenomenon. So Netflix came in 2016. Game of Thrones was made by HBO, was also gaining a lot of fans here in Singapore, but they were not happy that we were seeing the cut version. So in 2016, the MDA made clear that if you deliver content over the internet, as long as you put a passcode on it, you can go up to R21. And so Game of Thrones went up to R21, and we got the uncut version on, things like the HBO Go app. Yeah.
Okay. And how does the pirated versions affect, the television series?
Well, it's the most pirated show in the world, right? But the thing is, HBO has an attitude, okay, we'll block it wherever we can, but they also, sort of like didn't want to shut everything down. They're not, for example, as fierce as Disney is about shutting down. You go to YouTube, there are a lot of Game of Thrones clips. Why isn't HBO shutting all of them down, right? I think their attitude to it is it's a branding opportunity. They as long as they've heard the show, they might buy the merchandise, and there's a ton of merchandise out there.
Okay. And what makes Game of Thrones, part of popular culture? I've always wanted to know.
Well, it's it's something that you can have an opinion on when things are really political. You can't talk politics. You can't talk anything. For once, we have a TV show that a lot of people have. I know you haven't, but you're
so
maybe in a
guilty.
minority. But a lot of people talk about it. They can talk about it over coffee, over lunch. Yeah.
Okay. And going back to the Singapore film industry, television industry, how will Game of Thrones change that landscape?
Well, good question. As I said, Marco Polo was filmed in Pinewood Studios in JB, and it was made by Netflix. It was an expensive show, and it employed a lot of Singapore actors, but it only lasted a couple of seasons. So even if you do follow the formula, and Singapore filmmakers can take note, follow the formula, fantasy, period drama, sex and violence, blah blah, it's still no guarantee of success. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, John, for sharing your perspectives
No worries,
with
thank
us.
you.
If you haven't gotten enough of Game of Thrones, do log on to straitstimes.com for our Game of Thrones podcast called the Join the Watch, where our recent episode, the journalists discussed whether the last episode was the worst or best finale ever. And we have come to the end of the show. Once again, I'm Rachel. For more news and videos, do log on to straitstimes.com. Join us again same time tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.